If you're an educator who maybe feels like your word economy isn't super strong, chuck on your voice recording next time you're introducing a topic or talking to your class, and use that as a learning opportunity or reflective thing to listen back and see how that sounds. Yeah, I love that.
Words account for just 7% of communication when it comes to it. So it's so interesting that so often we focus so much of our attention on the words that we're saying, when in fact the message that's being received.
When someone takes a very long way to say a certain thing. So word economy is saying that a sentence or a phrase or an instruction set, that was bad word economy, in the shortest possible way, while still conveying the message in an effective way.
Podclass acknowledges the true and traditional custodians of the land we meet on here today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present and are grateful to be on this country.
So no one told you teaching was gonna be this way. Your lesson plans are jokes, your patience broke, you're feeling in disarray. It's like you're always stuck in report writing, when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your school year. But I'll be here for you
when the students start to riot.
I'll be here for you,
even if your coffee is gone cold.
I'll be here for you, 'cause you're there for them too.
Welcome back to Podclass. You are with your host, as always. I am Wil Masara, the CEO of Youth Leadership Academy Australia.
Also known as Wilson.
Yes, Wilson. Sometimes they say holla, but today it's just hello.
Buongiorno.
I am joined by my co-hosts, Skye and Amanda from Youth Engagement Project. Hello.
Hello.
Happy Wednesday, 5 a.m.
Whoop, whoop.
Well, it depends on what time you're listening to it, but we are excited.
Australian Eastern Standard Time. No.
We are excited for you to be back with another episode with us, the one about communication in the classroom.
Effective communication. What a big topic. We all work in lots of places and where, of course, lots of places. That's such a funny
How good
thing
is
to
this
say.
for communication?
How
for the
good is
opening
this
of
for
communication?
really effective communication.
Can I let you in on a little secret as well?
What is it?
The episode is called the one on, what is it?
Effective
communication. Yeah, I said it was wrong. I said it wrong. Sorry. Communication.
Here we are, and effective communication starts now. We are here to talk about communication, and we have all been so fascinated by this throughout our time working with young people, and we've really noticed, what is present when communication really works and it's really clear and it's really understood versus what's happening when it's just feels like a custard that hasn't set and just falls over.
Because unfortunately, every single thing that we do, everything that we wear, every time that we stop talking sends a message to the world.
It really
And
does.
no one wants to be soggy custard, which I find funny because custard is permanently runny. Like custard doesn't set.
Maybe I was
Thinking of like a
jelly.
something that, jelly's better.
Jelly's better.
Jelly works. No one wants to be like unset jelly in our communication.
And
this is
what
not
you
a great
really
metaphor.
want to be
Is refrigerated.
Yes, refrigerated. Okay.
So
moving
what we are
right
going
along.
to do, what we are going to do with you today is we are going to unpack from the three of us throughout our time and our research and our application, our greatest learnings around enhancing communication and making it incredibly effective, specifically for working with young people.
I actually think that the best place to start is probably looking at the communication pie. Because everything else I think is probably important to cover kind of is attached to that pie.
Not the apple pie.
Not a custard pie.
We must
but
be hungry
the
or something's
communication
going on
pie.
in this little room today.
The communication pie. So the communication pie, if you imagine a particular
Pie.
imagine a pie. There's different chunks, and each of those chunks have different percentages that we attach to communication. We know that the three ways that we primarily communicate are through our words, our tone of voice, and our body language.
And so many people assume that words take up the majority, right? And that's where they spend a lot of their time and energy. However, that's not the case.
Let's look at the breakdown of the pie, whatever pie it is that you're imagining. Words account for just 7% of communication when it comes to it. So it's so interesting, as you say, Will, that so often we focus, so much of our attention on the words that we're saying, when in fact the message that's being received, the words are the smallest piece of that pie.
And before we move on to the other slices of the pie, where do we get that 7%? When we're texting someone, it's only 7% of communication. When we're emailing, we've received them emails that maybe we think are a little bit angry, but it's only 7% of communication.
You get that text message and it's like someone puts a full stop at the end and you're like, oh my gosh,
They're so mad at me.
they
It
would
literally
normally
happened
put a full
today.
stop. Did it?
Yeah, Mum tried to call me and I said decline. And they said,
Karen.
please call me. And I was like, oh my God, who hasn't?
Please call me full stop.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh wow.
No, actually it was a love heart, which is a little bit more weird.
No, a love heart
No,
is.
because it's like something's wrong.
Do you know what a love heart adds? The next piece of the pie,
Yeah.
which is tonality. So tonality actually accounts for 38% of our communication. And it is, as educators, as people working with young people, it's incredibly important to put effort and be aware of the tonality we're using. Because, for example, let's take the phrase, you're the best. And Will, can you please say that phrase in an excited way?
You're the best.
Skye, could you please say the phrase, you're the best, in a sarcastic way?
You're the best.
Okay, Will, could you please say the phrase, you're the best, in a sad way?
You're the best.
See the difference? It's actually really sad. See the difference? The tonality we apply to words has actually more emphasis and power behind it than the words themselves. And when we think about communicating online, I kind of believe that emojis add the tonality.
Or if you're my dad, because we're talking about parents and texting, he was forced by Telstra to upgrade from his Nokia 365 to something that had, 3G or 4G a couple of years ago. And but he only texts in capitals. So whenever he messages you, it's like, hi, Skye. Yeah, literally, hi, Skye. How are you? Drive safe today. And I'm like, just no. So we can communicate tone sometimes through the digital realm.
Right.
So, yeah.
Amazing. And then the third chunk of the pie, what is it, Wilson?
It is body language, the way that we move, the way that we use our hands, the stories that we tell. We can take people on a story with our body language. Like if we're walking into the classroom slumped over a little bit like this, if you're watching a video, of course, my shoulders are down, my neck is also down.
Body language is currently closed. He is looking withdrawn.
And we all know this. We can read body language. As educators, we're quite used to reading that kind of body language in our students, in ourselves, in our colleagues. It's what can also give you the impression of, oh, that person's not approachable right now, or they are approachable, because we can be open and closed in our body language. But why is this important to teaching and what we do with students? Well, I think it's important to acknowledge that, and I'm so guilty of this in the classroom, becoming so reliant on your slides or your PowerPoint as your main point to kind of guide you through a lesson. All the content's there, students that are awake can
Or a
access
textbook.
it. Textbooks, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's a really important point to just pause and reflect that is just 7%
There's
of communication.
93% of communication missing.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, and we've said it in the last episode, when we'll say it again, we believe that it's not about what we say, it's not about what we do, it's about how we make young people feel. And we've looked into engagement and creating engagement in the classroom. And through that 7% alone, we cannot expect high engagement.
And there's also acknowledgement to do of we very much understand that you're trying to get the visual learners, you're trying to get the auditory, and you're trying to get the kinesthetic too, and that's what you've been taught too.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what we can do is we can take this pie and we can apply some toppings. Let's talk ice cream, whipped cream, sprinkles. What are we adding to this pie?
More custard. No. So we have a look there. We do have some other things, and some of this actually sits in the words category, but it's really about how we use those words mindfully and really purposefully when we're communicating. And one of those things is, and we've spoken about this in a previous podcast episode, when we can't, the one about storytelling, I believe we had a look at.
Yes.
We looked at the idea of if we give a set of instructions and our young people or our students aren't responding, or they're not getting it. And you're like, I thought I was really clear in what I was saying. Well, like the common denominator is probably you, the way you've delivered the thing. And so we need to reflect on maybe how we do that. And there's a couple of things we can do in our communication to help make sure that that's really clear. And one of those things is painting the picture or eliciting the image. And we do that through using sensory language, because what we know is that we can't comprehend what we can't picture. And so when we can paint a picture for students about what it is we're looking for or after in a classroom setting, then we know that they're going to be able to comprehend that and then act on that thing. If they can't picture it, likely we get disengagement because they're like, what is going on? Yeah, like what?
And giving them time to picture it too.
All that time. And like, you know, when you send as a group of students, and Wil, I know that this was you in school, so you're going to relate to this, but when like a task gets set and then everyone kind of starts, and there's always like a group or pocket of students that are like, what are we doing? Wait, what's next? And that's
sometimes you do that now in adulthood, actually.
Because
we're not painting the picture enough.
Painting the picture, and also we know the clarity is so important, and also break it down a little bit more.
Yeah, the clarity.
Attention spans are shorter. You're giving us 9 instructions over 4 minutes, or
and that's
not happening.
Honestly, that's a really good point, because we also know that chunking those instruction sets makes it so much easier for our young people to follow. Let's do this one thing first, and then once they're all in position or they've all done that one thing, then it's the next thing. Then it's the next thing. And having them written somewhere also really helps students, particularly those who may have different processing needs in the classroom, to be able to break that down too.
So, and back to what you said as well, Wil, clarity is another factor. Let's call it the ice cream. So clarity in our communication is all about, you know, I think there's a few parts of this, and it does come into words, but it comes into many elements. You know, one part of clarity is knowing our content. So it's really challenging to be really clear in our teaching if we are uncertain in what we're teaching. And so, you know, there's definitely, of course, there's a lot to know in education. There's a lot to know in what we're teaching. And if we're unsure, just to maybe team teach something or ask for some help or spend some time investing in that, because we can't be clear unless we know our subject matter. And the other thing is being aware and clear with our instruction sets, as we've just covered, and also clear with how we're directing the focus of our students, because what we know is that at any given time, there is so much going on. Like right now, wherever you're listening to the podcast, if we're in your ears or on your eyes, I don't know how to say that, if you're watching, wherever you are, you could easily pull your attention away from the podcast in this moment. You could notice where you're sitting or standing. You could notice what the temperature is. You could notice what you can hear outside of this, you know, and then we could pull your focus back into the podcast and just acknowledging that there is so much going on at any given moment. And we just, without clarity, we run the risk of students wandering, whether it be in their minds or their beings or whatever it is, away from what we're up to and to something else, which creates challenges for us and potentially even behaviour management situations.
It's almost like if there's a lack of clarity, we give permission to the young person to go wandering in their brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. And so it's a challenge and also a responsibility, I believe, as an educator to share with clarity. Because that, you know, when we're clear and when we paint the picture, it gives our pie the best opportunity of being delicious.
We've had ice cream. Let's bring in the sprinkles. Love
I
it.
think the sprinkles are my favourite part. Probably one of the favourite lessons I've learned this year.
And that is, are you thinking about word economy?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about it?
Oh, yeah, actually, we did speak about this. Word economy, my favourite. I get really frustrated, maybe I get bored when there's someone takes a very long way to say a certain thing. So word economy is saying that a sentence or a phrase or an instruction set, that was bad word economy, in the shortest possible way, while still conveying the message in an effective way. That meets all of the needs.
And we've all probably listened to a communicator that when they do communicate, they throw in a lot of likes and buts and and what I meant was, and the thing is that, so what the point that I was getting to was that the thing.
Okay,
and
so
it's
this frustrates me.
and it's so challenging to listen
I'm like
to.
triggered.
Or it's someone in your life, and we all know someone who talks in circles.
Yep.
And they'll come back, and then they'll go round, and then they'll come back, and then they'll go round.
Okay.
And,
And you're like, get to the point.
So how do we?
I think it's a training thing.
It is training and it's awareness.
So much awareness.
And word economy, it's just important to acknowledge that the more words we use, the greater the cognitive load for the students.
Yeah.
And so the greater the cognitive load, the more processing there is, and the more chance there is that we might experience, they might break their focus versus the more clarity and word economy we have in what we share, the greater we can hold focus.
Yeah. Can I share a fun story?
The more impact in the message as well.
Can I share a fun story?
Of always.
So
Is it about pies?
no, it's about when I was 13, I used to be a YouTube vlogger.
A
A YouTube vlogger.
Yeah.
A vlogger.
Yeah. So this is just
I did not know this about you.
yes.
Was it about planes?
No, it was about my life.
Wow. This
Anyways,
is like deep dive
anyways,
with
the
Wil
important part of
Masara.
the story.
You're 13? Hang on, no, set the scene. You're 13.
I was like, I must be in year 9.
What are you filming on?
I had like a little camera.
Okay.
I used to have like just
Length of episodes?
like 10 minutes, 11 minutes.
Just
And then
talking
this
about your
one-
life.
Actually, it was a little bit later. But it was year 11
what
and
was
12.
it called? Can we find these
Yeah.
episodes?
Will vlog. So, anyways, it was in year 11 and 12 because in year 12, in year 11, I did a full week of every single day I vlogged, and I was traveling for work. I was like Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide. I filmed every single day. Anyways, the point of the story is during that time,
And it's called Will Vlog.
Yeah, well, it's not there anymore. So I actually archived them about 2 weeks ago.
Don't worry,
The
audience.
point of
we'll
the
be getting
story. Let me get to the point of the story. Is every time I used to edit the video, I would make the screen go grey every time I said And I started to train myself because it took so much extra effort to edit the video.
Wow.
Moral of the story complete.
So the moral of the story was it was all grey when you first started, and then
But it was
you
like the
gradually
awareness
built it up.
piece because I started
Totally.
developing so much awareness to it.
That's so great.
And I know even for like some words, like I click every time I say something
Yeah.
wrong.
And I mean, and maybe there's a lesson there, right? So if you're an educator who maybe feels like your word economy isn't super strong, chuck on your voice recording next time you're introducing a topic or talking to your class, and use that as a learning opportunity or reflective thing to listen back and see how that sounds. Yeah, I love that. The last thing I'd love to touch on today is inclusive language, which I think is such an incredible part, an important part of communication.
Yeah, absolutely.
An inclusive language and using inclusivity is not just about making sure our students with differing needs in the classroom are included, but it's putting ourselves as educators in it with our students. And so what we mean by that is, instead of, if I'm introducing something and I want students to do something, instead of using a phrase like, okay, everyone, I want you to grab your books and I would like you to turn to, and I just asked you this question, and what do you think about the thing that I just asked you? Like, it's this I and you kind of language. And so instead of, we can change that to, in a moment, everyone, we are going to flip to page 96, and then what we'll find is actually on the top of the page. Can we all see that?
Oh, that feels so
and it just feels so much
different.
nicer.
It feels so different. It feels like you're on the same team.
Yeah,
I almost lost attention
on
during
the
the
same
first time.
page.
I was like, wait, I'm
almost.
still recording a podcast with you.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I feel like I love that. And inclusive language is, I think, the language is one part, and then also, you know, inclusivity as well around like sensory things and knowing, you know, we all know that our, you know, some students have different needs, and being inclusive of that to the best of our ability,
Yeah.
you know, as much time as possible. But the inclusive language piece, I find it really jarring. Like, and
the
now
I and you kind of stuff.
I've become
yeah.
so aware of it that when I experience it out in the real world, I find it so
I know,
jarring.
I'm the same. Like a checkout person. How's your day going? You mean how's our day going? Yeah, that's great. It's like, but yeah,
It's the same thing. All you need is like it takes habit over time and time again, and awareness of the moments that you do it, the little clicks.
totally.
Change it.
So I guess these are all just little snippets, little just, pieces of pie, little bits of topping that can just really add some deliciousness and spark and, I guess more seriously, enhance communication with our young people. And we just want to acknowledge and preface that it's such a journey becoming aware of these things, and that what we will do following this for sure is, we'll have moments where we'll be like, oh, I did that thing, or oh my gosh, I did this. And permission to celebrate ourselves for noticing that instead of judge ourselves.
Yeah.
Please, because that is the way for us to help create change without making ourselves wrong, because we absolutely do not need any of that.
We covered quite a bit today. We've looked at some effective communication kind of principles or practices that we can implement in our classrooms or in our lives, encourage this everywhere. So we looked at the communication pie, so looking at how our body language, our tone of voice and our words play a part in communication. We looked at clarity, being really clear in our instructions, chunking things as we're introducing them.
Painting the picture.
Word economy and being mindful of our, the clarity of our message. And
You go round and round.
Yeah, exactly right. And our clarity of our message can really decrease the more words we use. And finally, just inclusivity, really being inclusive and mindful of the language that we're using.
We have had a pleasure being with you today.
Such a pleasure.
See what I did there, team? That was inclusive.
And you know what I really liked, Will? It was the tone. Such a pleasure. It felt really real.
It was great. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll be here for you, 'cause you're there for them too.